There are two major supply chain events happening right now, which you might not even be aware of, that could cause a huge amount of inflation. Let's get into that and why we could see a massive amount of inflation on the back of this. So let's get into it and start off with the Panama Canal. A lot of people don't know about this one. So the drop in the Panama Canal traffic due to severe drought could cost up to $700 million. Okay, so let's get into it. A severe drought that began last year has forced the authorities to slash ship crossings by 36% in the Panama Canal, one of the world's most important trade routes. The new cuts announced Wednesday by authorities in Panama are set to deal an even greater economic blow than previously expected. Panama Canal Administrator Ricardo Vasquez now estimates that dipping water levels could cost them between $500 million and $700 million in 2024, compared to the previous estimates of $200 million. It's one of the most severe droughts to ever hit the Central American nation and has stirred chaos in the 50-mile, 80-kilometer maritime route, causing a traffic jam of vessels, casting doubts on the canal's reliability for international shipping and raising concerns about its effects on global trade. And one thing we've got to realize right now is in both the United States and in both Canada, both manufacturing PMIs are tanking. You know, consumers are really strapped for cash right now because of interest rates being high. So essentially, the economies are weakening in both countries. The United States is a major player here. Canada doesn't really affect global trade much. But the fact the United States has high interest rates right now is putting a kind of restraint on new consumer spending, which is meaning that there's just not a lot of demand for goods out there. And you're seeing that with logistics companies that are going bust, and shipping companies that are going bust, and shipping companies like even Maersk that have seen their revenues drop. But it's not just the Panama Canal. It's not just an isolated case of what's going on in the Panama Canal. Red Sea attacks already bigger issue for supply chain than pandemic, maritime advisory warns. So this is going on in the Red Sea at the same time. A leading ocean supply chain advisory firm is warning that the disruptions to shipping from the Houthi rebel attacks in the Red Sea are already more damaging to the supply chain impact than the pandemic. Think about that for a second. And you know what? Like, you have to ask, with at least the Houthi rebel attacks, you have to say that that is in somewhat self-inflicted by the West that has happened. So you do have to ask that question of, was this orchestrated? But anyway, that aside, taking my tinfoil hat off, if you look at that again is snarling up global trade traffic. A lot of ships are being diverted, exactly what's happening with the Panama Canal. And not only that, there's a big wait going on, as we can see here, which is happening with the Panama Canal as well. You've got tons and tons of ships that are waiting to go through the canal here to get to the United States, ones that are waiting to come back. And this is only getting worse. And the problem is as well, the cost is going up for these ships as well. So to get their goods through that canal, it's costing them more and more money. And the economic blow that it's dealing to Panama will be severe as well, because they're a dollarized economy, so they can't print money, and the government relies heavily on the canal revenues to fund different things like the Social Security program in Panama. So there could be major impacts on the economy in Panama, which is already struggling after they just closed down one of the biggest mines in Central America after nationwide protests. So what's going on in Panama is getting increasingly volatile. And actually, by the time you see this video, I'll actually be boots on the ground here in Panama, and I'll be able to tell you what I can see and what's going on and show you. The fact that this is happening with the Red Sea, not good at all. So Sea Intelligence analyzed current vessel delays compared to delays over the last several years in a report for clients. The data showed that the longer transit around the Cape of Good Hope as ships divert from the Red Sea is already having a more significant impact on vessels available to pick up containers at ports than during the pandemic. This supply chain measure is known in the industry as vessel capacity. The vessel capacity drop is the second largest in recent years, according to Alan Murphy, CEO of Sea Intelligence. The only single event with a bigger impact than the Red Sea crisis was the Ever Given, the giant cargo ship which got stuck in the Suez Canal for 6 days during March 2020. Billions in trade were at a standstill during that event, with that exception. This, the Red Sea crisis, is the largest single event, even larger than the early pandemic impact. And you can see on this chart, they show like what happened during the early pandemic, the block of the Suez Canal, and now what's happening in the Red Sea. And, you know, this coupled with what's happening in the Panama Canal could just lead to a total disaster. And I seriously mean that as well, because if the US government, if the Canadian government, if the Western governments all come out again with massive stimulus programs in 2024 and interest rate cuts because of some kind of economic crisis, then what is going to happen? What is going to happen to inflation when everybody heads on to Amazon to start buying stuff again? Because that will be incredibly likely. And when that demand goes up again, like in 2021 and 2022, when there was massive blockages at the port of LA and the port of Vancouver, you basically had massive amounts of inflation that happened on the back of that because they just couldn't get the goods. Less goods coming onto the shelves and more demand means that, guess what? Higher prices. So, you know, I don't think that this is going to have a massively inflationary impact right now, but I think the potential is there for it to have a massive inflationary impact. Like I said, when you look at what's happening with the PMIs in Canada and the United States, they're going down, the economies are slowing down. When you look at what's happening, okay, there is a massive potential for inflation if we have a repeat with the government fiscal response that we saw in 2020, 2021, 2022. If we see that repeat, then yeah, we're going to see inflation go up at a breakneck speed, in my opinion. And Maersk has already announced that they're going to use rail for some of their vessels to bypass Panama Canal drought. And right now, there's a $270 billion traffic jam in Panama over what's happening with the canal. So the Panama Canal moves roughly $270 billion worth of cargo annually. It's the trade route taken by 40% of all US container traffic alone. So think about that, guys. The impacts on the economy are absolutely massive. And I haven't heard anybody really saying anything about whether the Panama Canal is going to dry up in the coming months, whether we could actually see ships get stuck in the Panama Canal if levels get so low. Nobody's really saying anything like that. So who knows? A level's going to get low, a ship's going to get stuck in there. Is it going to get blocked up within the next couple of months? We really don't know. We just know that it's continually getting worse and worse as they cut back more and more on the ships that can go through there. So it's kind of insane. So Peter Millard traveled to Panama to understand how the drought is snarling global shipping and impacting locals. Millard joined the Big Take podcast to share what could solve the canal's water level issues, from the experimental ideas to the politically fraught choice to build a new reservoir and flood neighboring lands. There are no easy fixes, but with a traffic jam this big, getting the canal flowing again is becoming more and more urgent. Yeah, I totally agree. You know, what is happening with the Panama Canal could be a total disaster, and it will be a total disaster. Especially, you've just got to put it in the context and think right now, our economies are slowing down. Demand for goods is going down right now. People spent a lot during the pandemic buying goods especially. So what people are spending right now, they're spending more on services and experiences right now. So we could easily see that tilt back into goods if there's a massive stimulus response or fiscal response again. And then again, we would just see inflation 2.0. And as you guys know, I've been saying that inflation 2.0 looks likely anyway. And I think we will see that if the government has a massive fiscal response. And that's without the Red Sea crisis, without the Panama Canal crisis. But this just means that we could surpass, even double, the levels of inflation that we just saw. Just think of the ramifications for consumers, because people can't afford their life right now, and inflation impacts everybody in the economy, mainly the poor and the middle class the most, and those people are the ones that are struggling the most and are seeing their standard of living collapse. I'll be in Panama whilst you're watching this video, and you'll see videos coming from me in the future about it. If you're looking for a VPN to get around Trudeau's censorship laws, go to expressvpn.com/marketmania. If you're looking for a video that was like this video, check out this video here. If you're looking for a playlist where you can breeze through some videos, check out this playlist here. I want to thank you for watching. See you in the next one.